Ladies, welcome to this episode of the She Is Extraordinary podcast. I'm here with a very extraordinary woman and friend. I'm just honored to call her my friend. I'm here with Stephanie Vitaco. She is with Keller Williams in the San Fernando Valley area in California. And this woman is at the top of her game. In fact, in 2019, she was named the top individual agent in the entire Keller Williams franchise throughout the United States. She has consistently been in the top 10. She's been recognized by the Wall Street Journal's Real Trends in being in the top 100 agents across all brokerages in the United States. She speaks at both the local and national level. She's been featured in a bunch of media outlets, including LA Magazine, San Fernando Valley Biz Journal, and of course, the National Association of Realtors. So let's welcome Stephanie to the show.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm jealous of you because I'm looking outside and I have snow, and I'm sure you're in beautiful weather there. So
it is mostly sunny at 63 degrees, which is a little cool for us, but it's all good.
All right. Well, listen, I know you're one busy lady, so I really appreciate you taking time to share, your awesomeness with my listeners, because I have quite a following in the real estate industry, of course. So let's start off with just briefly your background. What led you to real estate?
Oh, gosh. I was extremely young. I had always had an interest in real estate. I didn't know much of anything. I had gone to college, and I was then traveling overseas in the fashion industry, and I realized that I was quickly getting too old for the fashion industry at the ripe age of 21. And so I decided I wanted more control over my future. And I had an acquaintance who was my age, who was doing very well in real estate. And I thought, I'm going to give that a whirl. That looks interesting. It looks like something that I might enjoy and I might be good at. I had no idea about any of it, by the way. I pretty much just jumped in blind, got my real estate license, jumped in, and that was a very long time ago.
But you don't look like it was a very long time ago.
Oh, no wonder why we're friends.
No. I know. It's so funny. I was just talking to a friend just yesterday, and we ladies are so darn hard on ourselves. I've gained weight since the pandemic, and others are like, oh, no big deal. Meanwhile, I'm just like beating myself up. So I know we're too hard on ourselves. But all right, so I love this idea. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's simply because we just want to be the best that we can be, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know that we both have that standard of excellence. Like really good or very good is not enough. We want to be excellent. And so you're right about that.
Yep.
So
yep.
I remember this awesome story of the door knocking. Of the door knocking story of how you kind of got your first listing. Would you share that here?
Oh my gosh, yes. So they told me, my broker at the time, they said, well, you need to, I said, what do I do? And they said, well, you need to cold call, you need to door knock, and you need to do this regularly. You need to sit open houses. So I started door knocking, which to me, growing up, my mother would always curse when the quote pesky salesperson unquote would come knocking at the door.
Yeah.
And so I had it ingrained in me that they were horrible people, and that was, really very negative, and everybody on the inside of the house was irritated if someone knocked on the door. What are they selling? So that was my reference point of knocking on someone's door. So it was very difficult for me to overcome what I believed they would be feeling when I knocked on their door. So I was terrified. So I was literally door knocking, and this man answers the door, and I had my script ready. And I said, hi, I'm Stephanie Vitaco, and I'm just curious to know if you're planning on making a move in the next year. And he said, yes. Well, the problem was my broker didn't tell me what to say if they said yes. And so I suddenly found myself going, oh no, now what? Well, actually, first he asked me for his watermelon because it was around the 4th of July. And he said, first he was grouchy and he yelled at me, "Where's my watermelon?" And I'm thinking, produce? You want produce? Why? I don't understand. But of course, back then, that was when the real estate agents in their farm would drop watermelons at 4th of July, and they would drop pumpkins at Halloween and all of that kind of stuff. So first he's screaming at me about his watermelon, and I'm thinking you can go to Vaughn's, which is the local grocery store down the street. I didn't get it. And then when I asked my question, are you planning on making a move? And he said, yes. He said, yes. What have you sold? And I hadn't sold anything. I had only had my license for 5 minutes. And I stammered and I said, well, did you want a list? And he said, well, yes, I want a list. And I said, okay, give me your phone number and I'll call you later with a list. Like, he must have totally known I was just stumbling all over myself.
Right.
So I went back to the office. Excuse me. I went back to the office and there were these 3 guys in the office who were very successful, and they all sat together, and I would ask them questions, and I would ask them questions so much that every time I would walk toward their area of the office, they would pick up their phone because I was that pain in the neck. And so I went to one of them. I explained the story of door knocking and that this man wants to sell, and now I've promised him some sort of a list. And I said, look, will you go on the appointment with me? We'll use your list. We'll put my name on it and we'll share it. And he said, of course. So that was my first door knocking experience.
Wow. And I just love that you got that unexpected yes, and you just roll with it, and impromptu, you're like, okay, we're going to move this forward. That's so good.
Yes, take the next logical step.
Mm-hmm. And so I want to I've been in an all like male dominated industry, which of course the law is. And you certainly were walking into a situation approaching 3 men, the 3 heavy hitters, and yet you did it. So for those ladies that are listening that can relate to that situation, like whether it's male or female, but you're looking at these heavy hitters and you're thinking they might be able to help me. Maybe I should talk to them, but I'm afraid. What would you say to them?
Oh, I had no fear. Have no fear. If you don't ask, you won't get. If you don't raise your hand, you won't get called on. The worst they'll do is yell at you and tell you to go away or ignore you or brush you off. So, what I found also was they did get sick of me. They really did. And after a while but I didn't have any fear in asking questions because that was the only way I was going to learn. And I didn't have any other ways to learn. There were no podcasts. There were no YouTube videos. There were no coaches. This was a long time ago. And the only way you could learn is to go to seminars, which I did, but those were maybe once every, 4 or 5 months. And then it was just a really short window of time when I read books. But I had an opportunity one time. There was a very successful agent in the office, and he wouldn't give me the time of day at all. And I really wanted to go on a listing appointment with one of these guys. And that's a lot to ask of someone because they're doing their thing and, it's awkward. I'm just going to bring somebody along. Mm-hmm. So one day, this very successful agent needed a ride to the airport and nobody was giving him a ride. And it was like, I don't know, Friday afternoon or something. And I said, I'll give you a ride. And my whole intent was, I'm going to give you a ride. You're going to take me on a listing appointment with you. So on the way, and that's what I said, I'll take you to the airport. You got to take me with you on one of your listing appointments. He said, deal. So then on the ride to the airport, I picked his brain the whole way down. Poor guy, he probably would have been better off hiring a taxi. And then he let me go on the listing appointment with him. And it was extremely, extremely helpful just watching what he did and how he did it, because I needed that practical application.
Yeah, I really think the ride along and the come along is so important because there is no better training in real estate than on the job training. And so when you can see somebody that's masterful at interviewing home sellers or even home buyers and knowing kind of their rhythm and what they say, and even as you said, what they do, like their body language and things, wow, there's no better lesson. So
absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and in case anyone is thinking, oh yeah, well, I don't have an opportunity to take somebody to the airport. All you have to do is bring them a lead and say, listen, I've got this listing lead. Will you come on the appointment with me, do your thing, and we'll share it? And of course, what agent isn't going to say, sure, no problem. So that would be a really easy way in to find out how a successful real estate agent does their thing, is get a lead, get a listing lead, and bring them in.
That's
share
great.
the deal.
That is so good. And again, it goes back to no fear, just ask the question. Well, let's talk about lead generation, because I know that when you and I talked, it was a while ago now, but you have built your business on building a network and referrals. So I would love for you to tell those ladies who are new in the business, or maybe have been around for a few years, but they keep repeating year one. They can't seem to get traction. What would be some tips you would give them in the way of lead gen?
Oh boy. So I do think the basics work. I do think picking a farm and farming that area works. If you pick one area of 500 homes or 600 homes that has a reasonable turnover rate, and don't pick the hard areas, like pick the areas where it's attractive homes that turns over, and just go in there. And after, if you door knock it regularly, if you mail regularly, if you door drop regularly, and if you follow up regularly, it's like a diet. After a year, you will own that area. They'll know you. They'll come to think of you. So that's a great way. And in the meantime, you'll get consistency out of that. And definitely after 2 years, if you do it consistently, you'll be strong in any area. And then at the same time, you're networking with your peers. You're networking with whatever your influence, your sphere of influence is. You're, showing buyers. You're following up. It's so many different avenues. It's not any one avenue. Now also social media and videos are really important. I think that's another mode that people can tap into to gain followers and connections, if you will.
Right. Well, let me ask now, and I want to be specific if you don't mind, and that is, so let's stick with the farm, for example. And I'm going to ask you in a minute about how the pandemic changed the way you do business, but let's go back to normal times. So what would be your recommended frequency for, showing up live, like to meet those in the farm in normal days? Like, what would you say?
Once a month, every 30 days, they should see you. I used to door knock when I door knocked. I hated it. Oh, but it's effective. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That was my appointment. Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 10 to 12. It was in my book. That was my appointment. Nothing would stop me from doing that.
Wow. And I love what you just said. Nothing would stop me from doing that, even though you did not enjoy it. One of the things that I'm crazy about.
I didn't only not enjoy it. I hated it.
Okay, that's even better, because I know so many listeners are feeling that way. So, well, over time, did you learn to not hate it?
No.
Okay, well, that's even better. So that goes along with what I often say. Ladies, if you want to thrive in business, you're just going to have to do what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it, because it works.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, it's so true.
Yeah. So that's just so good. But I love how you said nothing would get me off of it, because what I find is that I'm crazy for the time block. Like, there is nothing more valuable than our time, nothing more precious, because when it's gone, right? Because if you invest money, you invest your money well, you're going to be getting that back and then some. But when you invest your time, it's here and then it's gone. And so many women are like, well, I had this in my calendar, but then the phone rang, or then this, or then that. And I'm just like, no, unless the house is on fire or some other emergency, you've got to honor that time block. What are your thoughts there?
Oh, I agree. And it is really hard. It is really, really hard. But it's like a listing appointment. When I have a listing appointment, my phone is not with me. It's off. I'm not accessible via phone. I am with that client. I am present. And that is one area that, if you want that listing, you can't be taking a phone call, looking at your phone, or doing anything. So you just have to be disciplined and apply that to those other areas, which it is easy to just go, okay, I won't do whatever it is. I won't work out. I won't go door knocking. I won't do my calling. I'm going to dig through my gazillions of emails and get back to these people. But if you don't time block, and literally sometimes I have to shut my phone off and put it in the drawer to be able to focus on whatever it is that I'm trying to time block for, because it's a pull. It's a pull. And that challenge is real.
Yeah, I mean, I grapple with it too, but again, it's like honor that time block, honor the time block. So focus is something also that I think we women can struggle with, because God made us in a way that we can multitask. We're good at it. So do you have any tips or tricks on how you stay focused?
Oh gosh, how do I stay focused?
I mean, is it just a matter of the discipline, being disciplined and knowing that you've got to take it one task at a time?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think it's important to know yourself. Like for me, I'm a morning person. So for me, if I knock out the hard stuff first thing in the morning, it's so much better. If I wait till later in the afternoon or evening to knock out the hard stuff, it's not happening. I'll procrastinate. I'll go, my email is so much easier than dealing with that. So for me, it's doing it in the morning. Know yourself.
Oh, that is so good. I used to say, it has that expression, swallow your frog. Like, do your most difficult thing, or the thing you hate to do, or that you avoid it, get it done. And then you don't have that stress saying, oh, golly, I've got to make sure I do that. It's already done. So I'm with you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yep. Well, let's talk about follow-up, because no matter what the lead gen strategy is, door knocking, calling on the phone, social media, and a million other things that are possible, if you don't follow up, nothing's going to happen. So
yep.
The excuse that I often hear is, well, and you know what I'm going to say, I'm sure, I don't want to bug them or feel salesy. I don't want to make anybody feel that kind of way. But what advice would you have for the ladies to kind of get over that mindset?
So I understand that. And what I do is I always ask for permission. So at the end of the appointment, if they're not ready to make a decision, which most people aren't, I find anyway, then I say, great, I don't want to pester you. When should I follow up? I let them tell me. Okay, how about a week from Monday? Okay, great. I'll call you a week from Monday, and then do it. And then on Monday, I call them, just checking in as I said I would, not trying to pester you, just want to follow up, depending on first I'll call them. If I don't get them on the phone, I'll leave them a message. And then I'll also say in my voicemail, I'll frequently say, I'm going to also send you a quick text, as that might be an easier way for you, which is basically me saying, look, I know you probably don't want to call me back yet, but maybe you can respond quicker in a text, right? And then I'll text them, just checking in to follow up as I said I would. Don't want to pester you, just want to be diligent with my follow-up. And then I will continue to do so every few days. You have to also know your audience, right? You kind of got to gauge it. Like, there's that person who is like, if you push too hard, they're going to be like, I hate you. And then, there's other people who are like, yes, stay on me. So you kind of got to know your audience, but follow up until they tell you no.
How do you feel that out as far as whether they're the ones they need you to kind of, be on them versus they don't want to hear from you? Is it kind of your gut feeling over years, or what would you say?
I think it's reading people, and then that's why I ask for permission. Like if they say, like once in a while, someone will say, oh, we'll call you. And then I'll say, okay, well, if I don't hear from you by next, say, a week from Tuesday, can I check in? Sure. Mm-hmm. Like, what are they going to say? No. I've never had someone who said to me, oh, we'll get back to everybody once we made a decision. And then I follow up and say, well, okay, if I don't hear from you, say then by a week from Tuesday, can I check in? I've never had someone say no. Then, of course, they're going to say, well, yeah, okay. All right. She's going to be a pain in the neck. It's probably what they're thinking. But at least that way it gives you permission to follow up. At least it gives me permission to feel like I'm not being a total pain in the backside.
Right, right. Well, I'm sure you had those people that then agreed and said, sure, Stephanie, call me a week from Tuesday. And then it might be hard for you to actually get them on the phone or even hear back from them. How do you handle that?
Yep, absolutely. Then I'll text them, or I'll send them an email, or I'll change it up. I'll send them a little note card in the mail. I'll send them a postcard of a real estate postcard that I have on myself, and I'll pop it in the mail. Just thinking of you, just checking in. And again, after a while, they're like, oh my God, she's not going to go away. We better tell her what we're doing or not doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so do you ever feel like that? Oh gosh, I'm bothering them.
Well, I don't feel like I'm bothering them, but I feel like something else is going on and they're not telling me. Like they got a friend in the business. Even though I ask all those questions up front, like there was one recently where I followed up. And he kept saying, go ahead, and he wouldn't take my call, but he would respond to my text. And I could tell I was losing him. I was not for him for whatever the reason. But he wasn't, I asked the questions because I want to know if you're not going to, is there any reason you wouldn't be comfortable in doing business with me? Yes, my relative in San Diego, it's 3 hours away, right? Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is going to do it for $1. Okay, then just tell me that. But not everybody is upfront and transparent. And so I'll just keep pushing away. But I could sense that this guy had something else and he wasn't being transparent. So I'd call him. He wouldn't call back, but I would text him and he'd respond. But he would say, yes, please check back with me next week. Okay, I'd check back with him next week. And finally, he sent me a text. We've decided to go in a different direction. So I called him. He didn't take my call because when I don't get one, I want to know why.
Yeah.
So anyways, I ended up I sent him a text. He didn't respond saying, thank you so much for your time. Can you please tell me how you did arrive at your decision? He went crickets on me. So I ended up just pulling it up online, and he did list with an agent out of the area who's a tremendous discount broker. So I'm like, okay, he was just picking my brain. That was his whole thing. But I still had to, I wish he would have been transparent and just said, listen, I'm talking to the local expert, so I know what to do. And then I'm going to use my friend from out of the area who's going to do it for a discount. And I'm just picking everyone's brain. I would have been much better with that because then I wouldn't have had to continue to follow up. Right. But that's part of the business and it just goes with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that mindset of I'm not bothering them. I am being the diligent professional who, by the way, I want all these ladies listening, whether you're in real estate or whatever industry you're in, know that you're the expert. And I hope that you feel that you're the best thing going in your industry and that if they go another way, they're not going to get the excellent service that only you provide. So I really want the ladies to hear that message. My broker was still in production. She'd say, you know what? Hey, Judy, when you stop following up, when you see the sign in the yard.
Or exactly. Or when they tell you, when they tell you we're not listing with you. We're going in another direction. Okay, I'm done.
Yep. All right. So we've got to be bold. One of my mantras is do it afraid. So,
what is the mantra?
The mantra is do it afraid.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If you hate door knocking, but it's important to you, and I'm talking again about non-COVID times, and we're going to dive into that next. But, ladies, pick up that phone if that's important for you, if that's your way of getting business, or go live on social. Whatever your I have to do it, but I hate it thing is, do it afraid. And the exciting thing is, the more you do it, the less of a pain in the butt it's going to be. You may never come to like it. You may always dread it, but you're going to love the business that comes from it because it's all about connection, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you about the pandemic. How has these COVID days changed the way you do business? And I know this is going to depend state by state, but I'm just curious how it impacted you.
So, it's such a sensitive subject, right? When it first hit, of course, I thought, oh my God, that's it. I'm done. It's been a good run. It's over. It's all over. Nobody's going to move ever again. And of course, just the opposite happened. At least here in Los Angeles, right? It's been just insane. We've had over 50% of our sellers leave California. and for a whole myriad of reasons. But anyway, the first month was difficult. You know, my first Zoom listing appointment, it was a cold listing. The woman reaches out to me and she says, okay, we'll do it by Zoom. And I said, great. So I'm like, I did a whole test run. I didn't know how to use Zoom. I have my camera ready. I get my makeup on. I'm dressed and everything.
Yep.
And I click on the meeting and her screen's black. And I said, oh, I can't see you. And she said, yes, that's correct. I was like, all right. So I did a whole listing presentation staring at myself into a black screen for her. It was the weirdest thing. I had no feedback. I had no, like, I couldn't read her. It would have been better just a phone call but she didn't want to do that. It was weird. So the first month, nobody, of course, wanted to meet. And then as the months went on, people got more comfortable about meeting. And of course, I tell them the same thing. Look, if you're comfortable, I would prefer to come to your house. I want to see your home. I'll wear a mask. I won't touch anything. You know, I'll stay 6 feet away. And most people are comfortable with that. And I prefer that because Zoom there's that weird hesitation. It's just not the same.
Right. So how was your business in 2020 compared to prior years?
So I feel almost guilty, but 2020 was my best year by far in my 32 years.
Wow.
I closed 51 houses in 60 days of August and September. It was off the charts. I mean, it was just insane. And that wasn't because of me. That was because of the market. I mean, I was positioned well, and I was at the right point in the wave, in the ocean when the wave came up, and I just knew how to paddle and surf. So I took full advantage. But it was crazy. 51 houses in 60 days. That was just, it was nuts.
Yeah, that's a record. I've never heard of that. And that is a beautiful segue, unplanned, but a beautiful segue to my last question. And that is, tell us about your team or the structure of your business. Who else do you have?
Yes. So I am a listing agent. I built my business in a way before most teams are currently set up. So when I was a newer agent and I realized the leverage of humans and people, I went and I added an agent to my team, and my broker sat me down and said, you can't do that. You're not the broker. You can't have people working under you. What are you doing? And literally stopped me. And I'm like, okay, well, there's only one of me, so I can work like 20 hours a day and sleep under my desk, but how do I break through this? So I started leveraging my time with admin. So I am one agent with a team of admin. And I am master of a listing presentation and the marketing side of selling a house. That is what I have devoted 3 decades to really mastering, is how to sell a house. That's what I'm good at. And then I have people who help me. So I have most of my staff is licensed, but they work for me administratively. So I have somebody who works with me on the front end in prepping the comps and the marketing, getting it ready for when I go to the appointment. Someone who helps me with all of the marketing and exposing of the property and the follow-up until we get an offer in. Somebody who helps me from the point of offer through counter offers, negotiation. She has a TC. I have somebody who works 4 days a week to float and help with wherever the bubble is. I have a woman who's been with me for 21 years. She's a licensed agent and she's a mini me. So it is constantly living and breathing thing. It is not set. And every time you think it gets set, the market changes or the people change. But it takes a village.
That is amazing. And how long did it take to get this structure the way it is now that's working, like clockwork for you?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sure. I was just curious how many years or how long it took you to come up with the structure that you have in place now that works so well.
Oh, well, I tweak it all the time because I want perfection, and there's no perfection in this industry, right? It's organized chaos.
Yeah.
We're at the mercy of people's personalities, their timing, the drama of the business. But I would say that, so when I was in the business for maybe 3 years, and I was literally sleeping under my desk, and the broker deemed me a fire hazard because I had all my files pushed out into the floor because they gave me a small little cubicle. And I'm like, well, that's not enough room. So I'll just pile this stuff on the floor. So a woman came up to me in my office, and she was twice my age. I was in my early 20s, and she was a seasoned agent. And I remember very clearly because I was sitting on the floor. I like to work on the floor. And she had her hands on her hips as she was standing over me as I was sprawled out in the middle of the office on the floor, working on a file. And she said, you need my help. And she was going through a divorce, and she didn't want to get out of the business, and she wanted an income. And she saw that I was just, flailing all over the place. And she said, you need my help. And I said, well, how am I going to pay you? She goes, we'll work something out. Just do it for 90 days. And if it doesn't work after 90 days, we'll go our separate ways. I said, okay, sounds good to me. And that was my first foray into hiring someone. And of course, when I hired her, she freed me up so much that I was able to do more business, which meant we had to hire somebody else. And it kind of just went through that by itself, with tremendous growing pains. I had no business background. I didn't understand business structure. So it's just been a work in progress and constantly shifting and morphing.
Okay, last question before we wrap up. And this is what you've just said is, to me, it just speaks to the importance of mindset. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I will bet you dollars to donuts that from the very beginning you said, I love this, I'm going to be a success. Am I right?
Oh, yes. I wrote down. Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, my husband found something that I had in a box somewhere, and it was my goals, and it was from my first 3 years in the business. And it was literally goals. Writing down your goals can be powerful, because I wrote down some pretty lofty things 30 years ago, and most of them have come to pass, which is pretty cool. But it's a mindset. It's writing them down, and then it's following up.
So for those that are in the business and they can't seem to get any traction, and for me, like, you could give them if there was one strategy that always works, which isn't the case, but my thought is, if your mindset's not right, no one strategy or tactic or whatever is going to get you there. So is there any mindset tweak or shift that you have found that is going to get you back on the right track? Anything specific?
So I think you really have to want it, and you really have to be willing to put in the work. I remember clearly one of my managers who would do year-end reviews with all of the agents. She told me one time that someone said to her, and an agent said, I really want to do what Stephanie Vitaco does, but I don't want to have to work that hard. So you have to really look at yourself and say, do I really want this? And it's like a diet, right? Like, everybody wants to be a size 2, but what it takes to be a size 2 is, you can't eat. You have to eat only spinach and chicken, and you can't have all the good stuff. So do you really want that? And if you really want that, you'll make it happen. And yeah, it takes hard work and dedication. So, or whatever size you want to be. I don't mean to say size 2. That's not, you know what I mean by oh my God, you have to be so careful what you say now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's whatever you want. There's a lot of people saying out there, I want this, but they don't realize that no matter what that want is, will require sacrifice. And
tremendous sacrifice.
Right. And that could be a sacrifice of dollars to invest in a coach, or to invest in a program, or to invest in something so that you can grow yourself and develop. And it's definitely going to be a sacrifice in time, especially in the beginning.
Totally. You have to give things up. If you say yes to something, you're saying no to a lot of other things.
Wow, that's powerful. Absolutely. All right. Well, the last question, and this might make you think a little bit here, Stephanie, but this podcast is called the She is Extraordinary podcast. So I would love for you to share with my listeners an extraordinary woman in your life and what makes her extraordinary?
Oh my gosh. Probably my mother is the first one that comes to mind, because she was the one who told me that she used to always tell me when I was little that I was special. I wasn't special, but she would tell me that.
Uh-huh.
And she would tell me, she was so positive with her reinforcement. She would tell me I was smart and I was beautiful. And I mean, she would tell me all of these things and I believed her. So as a young kid, my mother was very instrumental in me believing in myself. So I would say she is probably the person.
Wow. I love that. Our mamas, I just interviewed a woman yesterday and she said the same thing. It's my mom. My mom was so supportive. And that is so critical to set you up because my mom would always say, hey, Jude, there's two types of people, a follower and a leader. Which one are you going to be? And
Yep.
so it's just really awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for taking time. These nuggets of gold, I'm sure my listeners are going to love. Now, where can they find you online, or where's it best to meet up with you?
Sure. So I'm stephanievitaco.com. I am with Keller Williams. I can be found via Google or my email, which is stephanie@teamvitaco.com.
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. Ladies, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider right now leaving a rating and a review, and always let us know your feedback because it is very, very important. Once again, Stephanie, thanks, hon, for being here. I so appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to talk to you.
All right. Ladies, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.